Welcome to the Stories Are Soul Food podcast with your hosts, Brian Cole and best-selling author, N.D. Wilson. This audio is brought to you by Cannonball Books and Great Homeschool Conventions.
This is Stories Are Soul Food, and we are here.
Episode 3700.
Yeah, we don't do the numbers anymore.
Because we get them wrong.
Yep. But anyways, we're here with special guest, comicer,
Legend, Doug TenNapel. A horrible influence on many, many people. And a wonderful influence on many, many people.
Yep.
We're here to talk to you about being a, what do you want to talk to him about, Brian? Because I know what I want to talk to him about. What do you want to do?
I mean, I have my ideas too, but you were already doing them.
Go first.
Okay, well, my favorite idea is I was reading some creature tech last night, and Doug's first work, and he kept saying to himself, whatever this is, we need more of this book as he was trying to write it, right? That's how that went. And
that's right.
And so my question is, if you had to reduce your books down to one thing, like what is that thing? What is that? Because I also was reading the start of Earthworm Jim, and it was saying, you were saying my books aren't, a lot of authors say my books are written out of blood, they're my blood. But you said they're pure, what did you say again? And the Earthworm, pure mirth, right?
Yeah.
It's out of joy. Well, it's only because, especially on Creature Tech, and now probably Earthworm Jim is back on Creature Tech. That was before my career took off in comics. So I did not assume it would be successful. So then suddenly, instead of doing it for money, because I like doing stuff for money too, but when you do stuff for money, you start to kind of change the way you do things, when you appeal to a crowd. If you look at my YouTube channel, it's very much appealing to a crowd a certain way. So it might not be the way that I speak extemporaneously, but Creature Tech very much is, because I just didn't know if anyone would ever see it. I had no idea it would be one of my biggest hits. 20 years later, people still read it and love it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by they come, and Earthworm Jim's different because that's going to make money no matter what I write. So again, I can do it for all the right reasons. Because I don't have to try to convince people to like something. They already came.
They're already in. They already backed it.
So now I get to make whatever. And so mirth, and then Creature Tech is more. I was reading a lot of theology and a lot of just fun, theology books like J.P. Moreland and intelligent design stuff and Greg Koukl, Stand to Reason stuff, the thinkers kind of, William Lane Craig. Obviously, I put Doug Wilson in that same group. And so I like the idea of writing stories that have some theology in it.
Sure.
That is not just the basic gospel.
Right.
So I do like, my first job is, of course, to preach the gospel. But when you're talking about like a brainy sci-fi thing, I like the idea, for instance, of like if you played with free will, or if you played with, holiness, or why it appears that bad people succeed and good people suffer. Like those would be great things to explore in story.
Yeah. Our last episode, we were talking about, we had my sisters on who were talking about the point of literature is to teach and delight. And coming from Spencer, then also C.S. Lewis, who said the same thing, basically.
Yeah.
You want to have some grist in there. You want to have some meat. You're not trying to teach Sunday school. You're not trying to spell stuff out, but you are trying to explore. You're trying to explore themes and questions, and to get the reader to do the same. But also, you're trying to delight, to bring pleasure, to feed.
Yeah, and you may not hammer the truth home perfectly because you're exploring it through story and character and stuff like that. But
you're not doing careful analysis.
Yeah, because there does have to be that splendor and wonder that needs to feel, spontaneous like life, or it won't read like a wonderful tale.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you have in Creature Tech, you have an overt conversion scene, and at the same time, it's handled in such a fun. Well, I mean, for one thing, it's a conversion scene via Parasite.
Yeah, sort of. It's an alien parasite.
Which is, something we've seen in a lot of literature.
Right.
the age-old trope of conversion by parasite.
And I thought that was fantastic because so many people, when they put a conversion scene in it, will feel very ham-handed. And yours felt almost like a bit of frosting on the top there that kind of helped get your book. It was amazing.
And by the way, he could have come to that moment and seen, Jesus on an alien cross and even rejected him. And the gospel still would have come true because it would have shown
it would have been there.
That Jesus was destined to die kind of thing for sins. But the conversion just seemed more, it's kind of a Doc Hollywood story where, you leave the hometown and you're all judgmental of your small town roots. Then you come back to it and you kind of with a little more maturity and you see another side of it. And then you better embrace it. You transcend the idea of it just being where you think that the high-minded stuff of, snobby academia or whatever, and you immediately dismiss your upbringing, your small town culture and all those things. And I think we're all tempted to do that on the internet every day. And I was working a lot in Hollywood at the time and video games and in big media. And I just really felt that thing of like, rednecks are so stupid and country music is terrible. And, people who swing a hammer are so dumb. And so I just flipped it all on its head in that book.
Right.
Some of the smartest people in the world are these kind of stoic guys. And so it was kind of a tribute to my upbringing of saying, I left the city, I went to LA and realized a lot of those things I was running from were great things that I have since kept with me all the way into my adulthood. And it's been a great foundation to judge a completely lost, stupid world.
So if we looked at your catalog, because you have your stories are wild. They go a lot of places other stories do not go. And part of that's just out of your joy, out of your particular unique sense of humor, then your desire to draw and push the unexpected.
Yeah.
You really don't know what's going to happen when you turn a page.
Yeah.
But of this catalog,
Nate, I'm also a little bit of a jerk. We know I have a mouth on me.
Yeah, you're a little bit of a jerk, but you're also one of the nicest guys that there is.
I'm a jerk with a heart.
A jerk with a heart. A jerk with a strong guilty sense after you've been a jerk.
I'm like Bill Murray at the end of Groundhog Day. I'm a jerk with a heart. but that really is probably, there's a rebellious sense in me that may not always serve me well because I've got a mouth on me, and maybe I like shaking things up, or I feel like I'm being shallow if I'm not just dropping verbal bombs everywhere. That's, I'm virtue signaling to me, not to everyone else to keep me on.
So I was going to say, if we walk through this, if you got to pick like the series or books of yours that were in every Christian kid's library, what would those be? What would be the ones that you think, this is the meal that I really want to have fed to millions of little Christian imaginations that will help equip them to be, bigger, faster, stronger, creatively, spiritually, jerks the right kind of, will help them be, the better people. And I don't mean not just moralistically, but like in terms of their imaginations and soul food. That's our podcast. Stories are soul food. So which ones would be your go-to meals for the millions of little Christians out there?
I've got two that immediately come to mind, and one is Cardboard and one is the Newts trilogy for different reasons. But the Newts trilogy, I have to caution myself from recommending that one because it just didn't seem to land with the audience the way I wanted it to, whereas Cardboard did.
Yeah.
What can you say more about that?
Sure. I mean, Cardboard, all those characters are me. So there's an unemployed carpenter, and that's how Nate and I feel when we're unemployed writers and nothing's hitting. And you have a kid, who and then
must find money.
And then you have the bad kid in that who very much represents me with my bad mouth, and he gets kind of restored at the end or converted at the end in his own way. And then there's the wonder of cardboard, which represents our art form of trying to make something real out of stuff that's not real. So in that case, it's about cardboard where it comes alive. But in our case, it's you're using words to try and build a world or convince people of something that might change them and you know, in some way. And then sometimes it can get out of control, you know, and blow up on you. And that's kind of what cardboard's about. And it really is probably the best thing I've ever written. That's the book that if I had to read another one of my books, I never do. But if I had to, it would be cardboard.
Yeah. And what's the point of reading your own books?
You already did them.
You've been there and you can't change anything. So you don't want to go back through and see stuff that you would change.
Well, that's right. And you rewrite them so many times and you edit them and everything. That's just like, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
And the other one would be Newts, where, you know, Newts is like my tribute to creation and to God's creativity, where the first animal, you know, that really got me to where I knew there was a God was when I was 5 and I saw my first like salamander tadpole sitting in a puddle. I went like, what is that? My dad took me fishing up on the Oregon coast. And you know, this from your uncle that, you know, we love amphibians. We're crazy about animals, things like that. And there is a wildness and a wonder, a ruthlessness of adventure that every animal, you come into a creek and you go, how did that thing survive? You know,
yeah, for sure.
There's all these narratives in all the corners of the universe of things in existential struggles.
Yeah.
Like just battling to exist for another day, but without getting eaten by a crawdad.
and then amphibians especially are I see them as a very useful storytelling element in that they have a dual nature. They partly live in water and partly live on land. And so there's something to me that was always they're
soft, they're adorable.
Yeah. Yep.
I've never quite understood people who didn't find them really cute. Like,
and the transformation.
Yeah.
The transformation happens. I've seen that, you know, the tadpole actually, the arm, you know, bulge under the skin and then tear through the skin. The left arm goes through its vent where it gets its water breathing apparatus, literally clogs the vent so it can't breathe through it anymore, forces it up to the surface. Its mouth goes from a sucker mouth that rips wide to be a frog. And you can see this stuff happen. So, which
is, by the way, not realistic at all.
Yeah.
It just isn't. By the people's definition of realism, that's completely fanciful. It's completely fantastic.
Yeah. It's
in every sense. Yeah.
All science fiction comes from amphibians, insects, and octopi. Pretty much all of it.
Wait, squid too.
Right. There we go.
Squids.
We got him some ink squirting.
Cuttlefish, everything. Covers pretty much all of it. And so there's something about that just nailed me on the wonder side of things. And it's wonderful. And you'll notice that 2 of the main characters in the book, one's born with withered legs. You know, they're born in wheelchairs.
Yeah.
They're completely seduced by evil. So it was kind of a fairy tale for kids about how wonderful life is, even though sometimes you get a raw deal.
Yeah. Yep. That's so Newts and cardboard. But you said that Newts doesn't land the way you wanted it to. Just mean, and actually that, I don't think that's something you should necessarily, it doesn't mean you need to reassess, but it's kind of funny because if I think about my series, it's like, well, the 100 Cupboards series has been the far more popular series.
Yeah, it's huge.
But the Ashdown Burial series has the block of just fire breathing fans. So the fans of Ashdown, you know, they are zealots and they are far fewer, you know, tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands.
But you respect them more because they're more potent.
Yeah, and it's fun. But I also they put more into it. They got more out of the books. So there's stuff that's in those books that they found, that they sought out, that they discovered, and that it's just interesting. So I don't think I can look at Ashdown and say that was a miss. You know, I can't say that. But I think you can say, why didn't that go on a massive international level the way Cupboards did? And I feel that way about Newts and Cardboard. Cardboard, I understand. I like them both, but Newts has got a lot more weirdness, which is funny, given that it stays closer to reality in some ways. So because it's salamanders, but you didn't make those up. And Cardboard coming to life and doing all those crazy things is It's further from reality, but feels closer to, I think, a materialistic world.
Well, I don't know. As far as, I've got 4 sons, 8 and under, and I can vouch that Cardboard and Newts both just hit those little guys right where they needed it. And I mean, my 3-year-old just be flipping through all of them, just wanting pictures. And then, they actually a lot of good questions about stuff from those as well. Because of the bad kid, especially in Cardboard, I think it's always nice.
And we'll just call him Doug from now on.
Yeah, exactly. He's based on me and my best friend when I was growing up. So I know it was so funny because I wrote, there was a scene in Tommysaurus Rex where
that was the next one I was going to ask you about. It's perfect.
Yeah, they pinned a kid down and they put dog poop in his mouth. And my publisher at Scholastic said, "Can you remove that? Like, that's so cruel." I go, "No, that actually happened to me and my friends." I go, "That stays in." So it's like a brutal moment. I go, but I think kids recognize that stuff is real.
Yeah, and that's like your Voldemort saying, Yeah. It's like it's kind of like Lewis and Paralandra, where the Dr. Ransom character discovers that true evil is just peeling the backs off of a frog. It's just really, really
the devil character's like just destroying them.
So Satan,
for his own sake.
Satan is not grandiose and building these enormous cathedrals to himself with really complex architecture. He's just torturing frogs.
And he's petty.
Yeah, it's super. Evil at its most fundamental level is an extremely petty thing. But anyway, so I was then going to shift and say, so Doug, of your massive catalog, as a creator who's been a creator for a long time, do you have a shelf labeled regrets or regerts? Are there books that you don't want on those little Christian kids shelves?
I mean, the closest thing to that would probably be Black Cherry, and maybe my first book, Gear, are just kind of Gear is just kind of a lot of potty humor.
Yeah.
Creature Tech went into that a little bit in the first printing, and I was able to clean some of that up. And that was just where I was at in the 90s as a younger man. And then Black Cherry, I deliberately went dark. Like I was trying to put. Yeah,
that's like a graphic novel for adults, though. At least it feels that way. Yeah.
I mean, otherwise not a lot. They're not, I guess I see all of the books as so imperfect that I don't take pride in any one of them. I do take pride in the body of work just because I think by sheer volume, they're worth something.
Yeah.
And any one of them, it's very hard to stand by as a perfect story. And if I ever made a perfect story, I'd be done. You
just stop.
So the thing that keeps me going is that they never quite, I just can never quite stand up on those tiptoes that I want to do on writing and art.
Yeah, I think watching your books, the later versions with the huge launches where lots of people buy in, it's been so fun to see the physical book. You've got gloss on all the pages and metallic foil stamps and cut through windows.
How is Bigfoot Bill doing? Given that Earthworm Jim is such a huge brand.
Yeah.
And just a brand with longevity, and Bigfoot Bill has been something that's been kind of like a companion launch where you've done these crowdfunding.
It does less than half of Earthworm Jim, but Earthworm Jim has so much built-in.
It's got decades behind it.
It's just a bullet because it has a top-selling video game and a lot of nostalgia from the mid '90s going for it. And Bigfoot Bill, I had to start from zero.
Yeah, brand new.
Very little penetration into the culture, and that's kind of a problem with being an independent person. That's if you launched a brand new novel, it's just hard to get the word out on this new thing. And all my titles are brand new. So, they tend to be unique. So
launching stuff is really interesting right now, and nobody really knows how to do it. So you've succeeded, pretty extensively with your crowdfunding.
Yeah.
But that was a new thing. So as publishers don't know how to market stuff right now, nobody knows how to market stuff right now. It's let alone independently.
Can you imagine, Nate, being someone today? Like, I feel most sorry for TV shows and movies because no one wants to see them.
Yeah, there's so many.
Compared to YouTube, like one guy with low fidelity mic, not a star, and everyone wants to go see someone's YouTube channel. And you know what I mean?
I think it's interesting because people can be at work or doing their homework or doing whatever, and they bounce into YouTube quickly, and they're sort of telling themselves that they haven't slacked off. They've not left their they've not left their desk But whereas like if they got up and walked over and turned on the TV or they jumped into Netflix, they know I am now
not working.
So yeah, I am not working. Whereas the way people get drawn into YouTube is a completely different kind of
and podcasts that
it's the water cooler
visual to them, and they're the hugest form
enormous
of media right now.
And people are sitting there not like when a podcast is really gripping. People are sitting there not right now. For example, how many of you listeners are supposed to be working and you're at your desk or doing whatever, and instead you've got your AirPods in or something and you're listening, and it looks like you're working. Nobody else can hear what you're actually mentally engaged with. It's interesting.
In fact, when my wife and kids, if they're watching something lame, I'll put my pods in and I'll listen to a podcast, so I can still be with the family during family hour watching a show. And then I'm listening to a podcast.
Do you know what we call that? We call that leadership.
It's called being a bad dad. I'm even a bad TV dad.
That's funny.
That's epic. So you are like every Christian creator ever, a C.S. Lewis fan.
Yep.
What's your favorite?
Oh man.
Or even just recurring, like which one have you read the most? It doesn't even have to be favorite.
I probably read God in the Dock the most.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
I adore him. And by the way, I tend to read theology and not fiction. So both Chesterton and Lewis, I read their theology way more than their fiction. If I was going to go to fiction, I would go to Tolkien. So, but of C.S. Lewis's fiction, I would say That Hideous Strength is probably the go-to. That and Screwtape Letters, but Screwtape Letters can be so potent and so cruel. And true. It's almost unbearable to read.
Yeah, didn't Lewis say that he got tired of writing that? He didn't want to write more because it was an unpleasant.
It's just a knife that just keeps cutting, Yes. And it's like hard to read.
Let's twist the blade again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd probably go to Mere Christianity just for comfort reasons. But of his fiction, I think That Hideous Strength is where we're all going.
Yeah, it's where we are currently. It's where we live.
No kidding.
It's one of those weird things where you bounce back to old Schaefer and you look at a lot of old cultural commentary fellas and realize how embarrassing it is how right they were. Where it's kind of like it's like being in a bad sci-fi where or Oedipus. You're stuck in Oedipus where there's a prophecy and we had decades to avoid this.
And
we had decades, and
we're
yet
still
somehow
killing our dad.
Here we are. Here we are at the crossroads.
Schaefer really is the bridge, because he was really the one that grasped postmodernism. He was there in the heat of it, and Lewis and Chesterton and Tolkien were just watching it arise. They were still commenting on modernism.
Yep, and Lewis. But what Lewis did, the thing that's funny is that I think just to like interject there, I think that Lewis, like in Abolition of Man and other places, he inserted. Like I think he had a clear awareness of the life cycle of modernism, and postmodernism isn't really a new thing. It's more like the rot and decay of that old thing.
Yeah.
And so you see Schaefer grab and apply principles that Lewis outlined, but Schaefer was openly, engaging, like you're saying, with the rot, with postmodernism, while the rest of us didn't even know that was a thing yet.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying if Lewis had written Men Without Chests, 30 years later, I think he could have nailed it in a way and blown it up in a way that would blow everyone's minds. Whereas that was Schaefer's job because he came after it was really visual and present.
Yeah, it's astounding.
And Neil Postman, too, who wasn't a Christian, but Neil Postman kind of took off.
Yeah.
When I think of great works, he was kind of if I say Schaefer's in the 60s, then Neil Postman in the 80s is addressing it.
Yeah, I think actually that's a good one to ping right now to even discuss. I mean, Postman's thesis was passive media makes you brain dead, makes you dumber and dumber. So amusing ourselves to death.
Right. Amusing ourselves to death. And you see everyone quote him now over the Huxley versus Orwell, saying that's Postman was the first to write that.
Yeah.
So that carried us over to, I think, the 90s apologetics is kind of how I see my library developing. There's kind of big holes between Lewis and the modern 90s apologetics, but he sure sets the meal down on modernism, which all postmodernism is hung on that foul thing, and then postmodernism lives in its eddy and then blew up as its own thing.
Yeah, we are. So in your life as a creator, right now? What do you see is in the cultural, riptide that we see going right now? What's different? What's different right now from 2 years ago, 4 years ago? What are you bearing in mind as you create today?
Well, culture is so dead now that I think of Lord von Balthasar, who said, like, if we reject beauty, she will, in an act of vengeance, will remove truth and goodness from us. And pretty soon we will not be able to love. And I think that's what I see now. Is I see us as really entering into a time of complete despair, because and so this probably goes back to the early 1900s of Wittgenstein and Derrida and maybe Camus later, is that atheistic nothingness, because no one can believe that truth is there. Like, they just don't believe it's there, or they're trying to convince themselves not to. And now you see that over the last year or two, let's say, people being so skeptical of everything because we've been lied to by media that we're throwing it out right and left. That does not mean that we're embracing the truth. It just means that now we're the ultimate skeptic of everything. So then you see things like the conspiracies of QAnon blowing up on the right, which I always thought was just like 3 people. And now I'm like going, holy cow, it's huge. Yeah. And the disinformation is huge on the right and the left. And that those people, and it's not like the middle believes the truth either. When I read David French, I'm like, no,
the middle is just abdicated. They're just
Goldberg. They've gone nuts. So it's like everyone is taking a giant daddy step away from what J.P. Moreland calls that correspondence theory of truth. Yep. And so what I see in culture and storytelling is stories are responding not by embracing truth, but just by embracing chaos, self-indulgence, nihilism. Nothing's true. If you look at what Pixar's putting out with Soul, these are stories about nothing with nothing to say. In conclusion, they don't believe in happy endings. Nothing. Yeah, there's no happy endings. There's no transcendent meaning that we're building up anymore. And I don't like it. It's very bad for us all, both as a society and even as the divided core of Christianity is difficult.
It's an awesome opportunity at the same time.
It is. I think we're revving up. I think we're revving up for revival. I think
so too.
There could be another Jesus movement that just blows up, because where else, as Paul says, where else will we go? Where else can you go?
Well, I think when you see, as what I've told my kids, is like, this is what it looks like and smells like when an empire and a culture composts. Yeah. When they go to compost, when you've thrown them in the bin behind the kitchen with all the red worms and the raw eggs, and everything's just rotting down to a rich, dark soil that's got nothing. It just smells bad, and it just has nothing. But out of that can spring,
good place for seeds.
It can spring some amazing things, and it will be really interesting. You're right. The creation of a vacuum, a massive moral vacuum. I mean, I love the absence of a lot of the idols. It's even interesting. The absence of mammon as an idol is extremely interesting. Like, where conservatives are very confused, where it's like, wait, you don't want our money anymore? You're willing to just alienate half of your base? And tech says yes. Yeah. Right? Because we're in it. We're in it for this weird virtue thing that we have. But even that's going to rot out really, really fast. And in the absence of any kind of ethos, any kind of real mythical, theological framework to explain reality, we have all this insanity, all this madness, and then light can shine. And there will be super weird cult movements. Scientology will boom. But I think you're right. There will be a revival. I think there will be Jesus movement. Part 2. I think it's coming.
Yeah, the Jesus people. The early 70s. Now the problem is God is patient. That's right. Problem.
This is what my son says. He's like, his attention span's so much longer than mine. I want it to happen now.
Right. He's like, I want the change now. And he's like, look, I put people through 400 years of silence just for nothing. And then he also doesn't respect numbers. So
right.
His only goal might just be to tighten up our families and just have us be the remnant, So I don't know.
Even that makes a great limited series.
Right.
Time to have the TenNapels live as a remnant out in Tennessee.
That's what.
Think of how many Hollywood movies have already told that story. They already know deep down he's not a respecter. They go, "There's always only one hero."
Yeah.
It's not like there's 8 million heroes. It's down to 1 or 2. And then somehow we expect all of society to come along and act heroic. We're surprised. My other favorite is what they say about the Technocracy is they always, whether if it's Fight Club or taking down the Death Star, they always take it apart. They blow apart the Technocracy with someone going in and just ruining it.
Boom. And the thing is, we've had our prophets, all of our prophets have been predicting very specific things for a long time, and no one has listened. Like Christian prophets, unbelieving prophets, Balaam's, all the sci-fi writers, all of them have been predicting one big scary thing. It's not like there has not been big warning signs along the road. There have been nothing but warning signs. And yet here we are at the exact moment where they're also saying, hey, look how good we are at making very, very athletic robots. Like, what is wrong with you people?
They're doing backflips.
Go read a book, please. And then believe it. Do you not know where this goes?
So as a storyteller, Nate, where will you go with your storytelling to, attract probably the most disconnected, chaotic, ignorant, divisive audience ever? We want to tell them great stories.
Yeah.
How do you even get them to read it?
Well, those are two different questions, right? So
that's true.
So if we say one is, as I've thought through this, and it's not exactly comparable, but it's similar. If you think about the golden age of Hollywood was when, and it was through the Depression. And so when you have people going through, people who are lost, people who are suffering, people who are struggling for purpose and survival and meaning, I think stories have to be fundamentally optimistic and joyful. And I think that flavor is going to stand out remarkably. And it's going to be like baking chocolate chip cookies and filling as much of the culture as I can with the smell of baking cookies, while everybody else is wrestling each other, trying to shove dog poo in each other's mouths. So if that's what's going on, so everybody else is like rolling in the compost, and I want to have my oven mitts on and an apron and be walking around with cookie sheets. That's what I want to be doing. But at the same time,
5 years ago, 5 or 10 years ago, the big goal for us writers was, man, I hope I can nail a Hollywood deal. And now it's like, I would never touch that.
Well, I think that they would
filthy third rail.
Would they touch me? That's the weird thing. So I had an executive told my manager at a studio, it's like, oh, we're not buying anything from any cis white males right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. So if you were born a boy and you're white, then no, you may not sell us a story. And I think I was meeting with an actress yesterday, actually, and her comment was, after meeting with a bunch of casting agents in New York and LA, she said, it's really, really weird how people are openly talking about, just like every other way, using this massive shutdown, using this massive collapse to remake the entertainment industry with intentionality the way they want it on the other side of this.
Yep.
And so as it comes back online, as production comes back online, as things accelerate, do not expect it to be the same thing at all. It is going to start skewing in another direction, just the way tech does, just the way Twitter is and YouTube and everything else. Yeah, you thought it was leaning left already.
The rainbow Whopper.
Yeah,
rainbow now.
So I think I want to give real food. I want to serve real food. We've talked about earlier on this podcast when we were first starting, we talked about my own kind of psychological approach to what I'm doing. I can't try to save the world.
Yeah.
I'm when I'm trying to write a story, I cannot have delusions of grandeur and be thinking I'm saving the world. But what I can do is I can try to stand by the marathon track with these cups of clean water. And if I have clean water and good food that I'm just handing out, that will have an effect. And if I do it unto Christ, then I've done it to Christ. So, it's like when I was lost and despairing and full of emptiness, you told me a story is what I want to be told at the, when I die. It's like, that's, and I can say, when did I do that? Like just play that out exactly. So how do I offer clean, refreshing water and good food to people who've never had it before? The marketing piece is actually much, much trickier. And I think that now it's going to have to be platform based and basically build our own platforms.
Right. I think that's why Cannonball Books exists.
That's why we're doing what we're doing is because there was a time when the answer would be, oh, well, I'm going to go on the Today Show. I'm going to go on NPR. That's how I'm going to tell the world about it. And those are the old plays. That time of media has changed. And
it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
And
if it did, I couldn't be on it.
I've never had more opportunities to have more potent one-on-one time with people. Talk about giving a cup of water, forget even giving it to 100 people that watch my YouTube channel. I'm able to give it more potently to one now.
Yeah.
One person who emails me or calls or just guys who I have fun with and hang with. There's way more vulnerability there between people than I've ever seen before.
There are, yep. And we have to be willing to hand it to 1 or to 10 or to 10,000.
Yeah.
And whatever, and however God wants to use it, because you can use that one cup to that one person to really tip the scales, he can take your million readers and do nothing with it and let it all come to nothing.
Yeah, but the tarnish, certainly is present there. The shines come off of the mass media, where I just go, God's going to use me in culture. I'm going to create a show and put it on Nickelodeon. And millions of people are going to see it. I'm so over that. I'm just like, yeah, right. Or I'm going to make my movie. And that's where I think a lot of Christian who all have these media and film departments, I'm like, you all really should study Kevin Smith from Clerks instead. It's like, learn to make your own little movie that's for your River Thief,
Yeah, I think that's very, very true. And it's really sad to me. I think the saddest conversations I have are with Christian creators who are just coming online. Like they're just now popping out of grad school or just now getting serious. And they're thinking, how do I climb this greasy pole of secular approval and affirmation? Yeah. It's like that pole is not there. It doesn't even exist anymore. And, it's collapsing. So when I look, I'm grateful to have had the career that I've had. And I'm grateful that I got in when I got in. But there's people who've built their own platforms have an advantage right now. It's direct. It's direct to consumer.
Is the future. Yep. Independence. Build your own small audience that will come to your thing instead of just
and try to serve them well and try to really, really focus on serving the best food you possibly can.
The thing about Hollywood or movies or TV that made it great wasn't its size. It was the potency of message.
Yeah.
And now, we both know some of those right-wing lunatics that are funding Christian entertainment. They funded one of my shorts, one of your people up there. I was able to record. I recorded Andy Dick the other night as a voice for one of the things. And he asked me if I wanted to have sex with him, and he's always in and out of rehab, and I was able to witness to him and just love him, just tell him how much I loved him, and that's a rare opportunity. And he didn't get that kind of treatment from other people.
Yeah.
So that's how I want Jesus to use me. I find broken people and fellow artists and animators and people in the arts, and I tell them, that I love them and I'm rooting for them and I want them to create and make great stuff. But I never tell them, and the good news is you'll make a ton of money and be super famous. But it's not going to happen.
Yes. Yes, that is strictly reserved for us.
Yeah, exactly. Just for me, please.
Yeah, it's a wild time. And I'm grateful to live in a wild time. We're here for a reason. And there are still millions and millions of young imaginations who are in desperate need of food.
That was something my wife and I were talking about.
Desperate need of food right now.
You got to be faithful, and that's not like that's new to Christian history.
Yeah.
You be faithful where you are.
What should we do? We should be faithful.
Yeah.
We should rejoice in the Lord, because the other option is to curse God and die. That's it. Those are your.
Not even on my table. Giving up is
but if you distill it down to only 2 doors, right? 2 doors in this moment. That's it. You can throw in your lot with God and whatever He's doing and try to be faithful, or you can pull the Lot's wife. You can go with Job's wife. You can.
We got a lot of people bumping into door frames right now. I think kick them through the door.
My evil door is Jonah. It's like, Lord, don't even save these people. That's my danger.
Could you just burn it to a crisp?
Yeah, burn it to a crisp. And I also say, take my house too, Lord. Take my house first. That's my dark side. But also, I'd say find your allies. Is that, Nate? You've been a very faithful ally in that you find like-minded people that are on the same page, who are creators, and you can really build a sanctuary in turmoil. And I think that is going to be more and more important too, as the state comes down on us all, as culture comes down on us more. The communist underground model is always going to be.
Isn't that funny? It is. Yeah. We now, I tell people all the time, we live in Sherwood Forest. We are eating the king's deer. That's what we do. And the communist underground model is exactly right. That's kind of how it's going to be for a little bit.
And the deer are tasty up here.
I did practice home church last week. We've been church shopping, so we've been going around all these churches. And I said, today we're doing home church. And so I have my wife and my 4 kids around the table, and we're reading from 1 Corinthians. And I said, the reason why we're doing home church is I want to be in practice when we really have to do home church and it's not an option. I said, I just want you to know what church is like with just us reading a Bible and singing a few hymns, because with no big screens and no big show and no amazing preacher, because this is how a whole lot of church happened in the last 2,000 years.
So that brings up the last question, which is, when are you moving?
Oh, to Moscow?
No, anywhere.
Yeah. Anywhere? Well, I'm here in Tennessee, so I already made my California.
I know you already burned the California bridge, but if you're prepping for home church,
Moscow's a great place.
Moscow's a good spot.
Well, I do love Moscow, but if there's one thing I hate about Tennessee, it's that it's brutally cold.
Uh-oh.
And if this place is brutally cold, boy, how am I going to ever take on?
We need to get
Moscow?
you up. We need to get you up here in February, so you can actually experience how mild it is.
Yeah.
Well, I do love the Darren Down Farm.
Yeah.
My second home out there, and that guy has it made. I love everything.
Shout out to Darren Doan.
There we go.
That's right. It's a very romantic thought to go out there. I do like growing where I'm planted, and I do love the people in this area. I feel sorry for them because so many of them, I think, are just in need.
Yeah.
Of connection.
There's a lot of good people out there. It's a ton of good people.
In fact, when I was in California, I had nothing but compassion for those people too. I just wanted to.
You subdued your Jonah impulse.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I would find the secret Christians hidden in video game companies and animation, and I would just go.
And then you would out them on Twitter, and they would get fired.
Yeah. But Moscow will always have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I think mostly because the Breakfast Club diner. Is what I know. I remember
me and you, buddy, eating there. Oh, that was good.
Well, I'll get you up here again.
We'll get you back, even if only on the podcast.
Right.
But well, thank you very much, Doug, for your time. It's always fun to talk to you. Any of you people out there looking for visual stories that your kids could be
with heart,
fully absorbed
and jerks.
by. Yeah,
jerks and heart. We cardboard's the one.
Start with you know where to start now. You've heard it from the man himself.
And also newts. That's newts with 2 N's at the front.
Yes, it is.
That's right.
Because why not?
Well, it's so I could own the word now.
Yep, I know. Don't tell that. That's
part of the magic.
Well, thanks a bunch, Doug. Go fight, win. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yep. Love you guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Stories Are Soul Food podcast. Before you go, I wanted to recommend to you N.D. Wilson's Notes from the Tilt-A-Whirl, Wide-Eyed Wonder in God's Spoken World. From the book, I love the world as it is because it is a story and it isn't stuck in one place. It's full of conflict and darkness like every good story, a world of surprises and questions to explore, and there's someone behind it. There are uncomfortable answers to the hows and whys and the whats. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Through him were all things made. Welcome to his poem, his play, his novel. Let the pages flick your thumbs. You can find N.D. Wilson's Notes from the Tilt-A-Whirl wherever books are sold, and you can find the bookumentary on the Canon app.